The book of Acts chapter 21 verses 31 onwards, I'm going to read it for you, where it says, while they were trying to kill him, these Jews who were trying to kill him, news reached the commander of the Roman troops that the whole city of Jerusalem was in an uproar. He at once took some officers and soldiers and ran down to the crowd. When the rioters saw the commander and his soldiers, they stopped beating Paul. So here a mob is there. They are trying to kill him. Basically, they are trying to lynch him. Get rid of him, they are shouting. And fortunately for Paul, the commander, the Roman commander, hears about this and he rushes down with his soldiers, and Paul is protected there. So here we find that there are certain law-abiding citizens like this man, the Roman man. But the Jews somehow, even though they always talk about the law, somehow we find that they don't want to, obey the law of the Roman people. They are wanting to kill him. They do not want to take him to trial. They do not want to, have a fair trial at all. You know what that is, right? And they don't want to do that. Somehow the law, zealous Jews, they are always saying, we believe the law, we follow the law. And the law was not for, killing. Was never for killing. And they are under the Roman Empire. But they somehow are wanting to take the law into their hands. But fortunately for Paul, there is a law-abiding commander who goes and interferes and he rescues Paul there. But later on we find, verse number 37, as the soldiers were about to take Paul into the barracks, he asked the commander, may I say something to you? Do you speak Greek? He replied, unto you the Egyptian who started a revolt and led 4,000 terrorists out into the wilderness some time ago. Paul answered, I'm a Jew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Please let me speak to the people. After receiving the commander's permission, Paul stood on the steps and motioned to the crowd when they were all silent. Paul, being a person who's obeying or rather acknowledging the authority of the Roman commander, right? And Paul is being carried out of the mob because they are all crying, right before that. They are all shouting, saying, kill him, get rid of him. And the commander steps in, he takes him inside. And Paul very politely asks the commander, do I have your permission to speak? And look at this. This man was thinking that Paul was an Egyptian terrorist who had taken 4,000 people. This man, a terrorist, supposed terrorist from Egypt, had led 4,000 terrorists into the desert to train them, I guess. And knowing that, the man is still abiding by the law. Okay, it was very surprising. When you look at the contrast there, the law-abiding, the law-zealous Jews want to break the law. They are out for blood. They don't want trial. It's almost like, you become the judge, jury, and executioner, they say. Remember that? Right? It becomes, that's what the mob does mostly. Even in India, most of the time, something happens and immediately if there is a mob, immediately you need to be very careful because the mob is going to be wanting blood. They don't care whose blood it is. They want blood, okay? No fair trial at all. And even on social media, sometimes it's very, very surprising. Some incident is narrated there, and immediately people cry out for blood. They say, lynch him, kill him. Have you come across those things? This is very interesting. The law-zealous Jews are not willing to keep the law. The Roman commander is a disciplined man. He thinks that this man is a leader of 4,000 terrorists, yet he is not wanting to, kill him right then and there, right? He is wanting to safeguard him because the law does not permit him to kill him. And then we have Paul, who is the victim right here, but he is very polite, giving importance to the Roman authorities and the law, the politeness. I would call it the principle, the whole principle involved about the law. How are we? This is very important because some Christians say we don't follow the law. I don't have the law. I follow the heavenly law. No, if you are a part of the earth, if you are a part of a nation, you keep the law. Whether that law is going to save you or not, you keep the law. Because everyone else breaks the law, you have no right to break the law. Okay, that's just a passing kind of observation here, but that is definitely there. Do you see the contrast between Paul, the Roman leader, the Roman commander, and the Jews themselves? All right, then we find he is saying, let everyone be quiet, and he is speaking. Chapter 22, he said to them in Aramaic, brothers and fathers, listen now to my defense. Okay, so now Paul is standing up to defend himself, and he immediately switches to Aramaic. He was speaking in Greek to the Roman leader. Remember that? Right now he switches over to Aramaic. Very interesting. And then he calls them, what does he call them? Brothers and fathers. And he is giving a defense, right? People who are trying to kill him, and he's calling them what? Brothers and fathers. This is a man who, even though these people are wanting to kill him, after this, it's not just a defense, because he is going to talk about Christ now. Every opportunity, we've already talked about this, where Paul uses every opportunity, even a place, even a time when he was about to be killed, he takes that as an opportunity to present the gospel, a passion for the gospel, even for the people who are about to kill him. This is beautiful, okay? He is not preaching to people, who are not doing anything against him. They are out for his blood. They are crying, saying, get rid of him. And yet he is calling them brothers and fathers, and he is trying to build a rapport there and still wanting them to listen to the gospel. What an amazing thing. How would we handle this kind of a situation? Immediately we would be saying, bring down fire from heaven. They are standing against you, Lord. They are standing against me, Lord. This man, amazing. People who are trying to kill him, he stands for them because he wants them to be saved. Beautiful. The passion that he has. Last week we talked about the patriotism that he has, right? So he has created a rapport there. And then he goes on in verse number 2 onwards, he goes on talking about himself. And he says that he is a man who studied under Gamaliel, and he is trained in the law, and he is using this opportunity to present the gospel. Saving the lost instead of condemning the people who are against you. How is our understanding? Paul, let him be an example in all of these things for us to learn from. Becoming all to save all. We talked about this again last week, right? In 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about this, where he says, I become all to all so that I can save some for Christ. And this is his passion. You want to kill me, but before killing me, let me tell you something. And he would tell them, what? The gospel. How amazing is this? A man who's got principles. He's not against the Roman, even though he was a victim, he still abides by the law. A man who's got a passion, the passion of not presenting the gospel to people who are all very quiet and calm and very innocent. And no, he is presenting the gospel even to the people who want to take their lives. And it's almost like Stephen, where even when they are killing him, they would look at them and say, it's okay, you can kill me, but just give me 1 minute, let me present the gospel. You get the idea? Do you see that? That passion. That is how these people were. May God help us. And let me tell you, this can happen only if you truly follow Christ and you truly understand God. No other religion teaches this. You know that, right? People might say all religions are the same. People might say, all religions speak the same thing. But let me tell you, no religion, if you don't have a proper understanding of God, you would not be willing to get killed for other people to be saved. You would kill other people to save your religion, to save your God almost. But you would never allow your people to kill you so that they would be saved. Only if you understand God. Only if you understand God properly. Because when you understand God, we need to understand that God is for everybody. And therefore, my heart goes out with God where I say, yeah, it's okay, Lord. Everybody needs to be saved. And if I have to shed my blood for that, it's all right. We have stories. We have incidents like that. Look at Gladys Staines. This woman, having seen firsthand her husband and 2 children being burned to death, yet able to say, what? I forgive them. And I'm still willing to work for them. How does that happen? That happens when you understand the heart of God. Not saying, you killed me, what God will do for you. This is our mindset most of the time. Even as Christians, you present the gospel, someone is against you, immediately we get all worked up and say, what, God is going to stand against you. You are doing this against me, what is going to happen? You lift your hands to, slap me, God is going to make your hands stop. I've heard preachings like that. I've heard, people have this kind of a mentality, but if you really have a passion for people, you would be willing to lay down your life. Look at Jim Elliot's wife. What was her name? Elizabeth Elliot. If you remember Jim Elliot in the 1950s, he wanted to really go to Ecuador. He wanted to go to the South American, indigenous people and present the gospel. And he prepared so very much. And the first year that he went there, he was killed. And you know what this woman did? She was not against them. She went after him, and through her and a lot of other missionaries, that area was reached for Christ. That's because of the passion. Yeah, you are going to kill me, but before you kill me, let me share the love of Christ so that you will be saved. That is Jesus Christ's teachings. That is the passion that we need to be having. Are we principled people? Do we follow the law? Yeah, it might victimize us sometimes. Do we follow the law? I'm not talking about the law or grace part of it. I'm talking about the law of the nation, law of the country, right? All the other people might bypass it. When you look at that, sometimes that is what it is. It doesn't become news. You know that, right? Churches being vandalized doesn't become news. No news TV, news channel is going to cover, even yesterday. Was it yesterday? In Coimbatore, right? Remember this? Yeah, in Coimbatore, a church was vandalized completely. The pastor was beaten and he was bleeding, and all the equipment was broken. And you know what? The police did not even file a case. They did not even want to make an FIR. Do you know that? This is the scenario that you live in. You become a victim, yeah, but you still uphold the law. All the people who are claiming to be patriots might be breaking the law, but you still uphold the law because God has taught us that. And the second thing is, even though people who are hitting you, breaking you, who are against you, you still have a love for them, and you say, even with your last breath, I want you to be saved. That is the heart of God. That's the heart of Paul, and beautiful. And then you'll find, as he is presenting the gospel, as he is presenting, Paul uses this tone, which is very, very ironical. I would almost call it playful, okay? You know what wit is? Sometimes you think it's about joke, right? Not whip. Wit. W-I-T. Wit is basically the intelligence or the perception and clever, apt expression. Okay, that's called a perception of something, a keen perception, and an expression of it in a humorous manner. Look at this. And he is presenting the apology. You know what an apology is? Apology is not asking sorry. Apology is actually telling them why do you do something. Okay, that is actually apology. And he goes on saying to them, let me read it for you. Chapter 22, verses 3 onward. He says, I studied under Gamaliel and was thoroughly trained in the law of our ancestors. I was just as zealous for God as any of you today. I persecuted the followers of this way to their death, arresting both men and women and throwing them into prison. What is he saying? Guys, you think I'm an outsider? No. I was as zealous for God as you are and wanting to kill people. He's looking at them, he says, brothers and fathers, don't think of me as an outsider. I was as zealous as you. You want to kill the Christians? I wanted to do that as well. That's how godly I was. That is called wit, where he is presenting a true story, and he is saying that is what you consider godliness. That is what I consider godliness. And he is saying, I was so zealous for God that I wanted to kill the people who are following Christ. And that is basically, I do not know how he delivered these lines without smiling or laughing, because it's a humorous thing that he is saying. Yeah, it's a gory thing, but he is actually, what is he doing? Making fun of them. He is mocking them. Right? And these people don't get it. And look at later on where he says, verse number 17, when I returned to Jerusalem and was praying at the temple, I fell into a trance and saw the Lord speaking to me. And what does God say? Quick, leave Jerusalem immediately, because the people here will not accept your testimony about me. So Paul supposedly wanted to be in Jerusalem, and he wanted to be friendly with these people, it seems. And who doesn't want him to be there? God is saying, no. They are bad people. See, I'm not against you. Paul is saying, I'm not against you. In fact, I wanted to be with you, but God is considering you as wicked people. What can I do? You don't find the humor there? Okay. He is delivering these lines without a smile, but he is making fun of them. Or rather, there is a difference between sarcasm and irony. You know what that is? Right. Sarcasm is basically, you are making fun of people, you using a sarcastic tone, right? And yet the goal being them being hurt, showing yourself to be superior. That is sarcasm. Okay. Irony is doing the same thing. You are actually, when someone doesn't do a good job, you go and say, oh, well done, wonderfully done, right? That's sarcastic. If the intent is to hurt, that is sarcasm. If the intent is for them to understand and learn, that is Irony, okay? So irony and sarcasm are kind of very, very related. So he's not very, he sounds very sarcastic, where he says, I was so zealous for God, I wanted to kill Christians just like you did. Okay, you get the idea? But in fact, he's wanting them to realize, and therefore it becomes an ironical tone. The same thing he does, he says, you know what, I came to Jerusalem, I wanted to be with you guys, but God said, don't be here. And he goes on there. Lord, I replied, verse number 19, these people know that I went from one synagogue to another to imprison and beat those who believe in you. And when the blood of your martyr Stephen was shed, I stood there giving my approval and guarding the clothes of those who were killing him. Paul is almost, siding with these Jews, and he says, you know what, God was always against you guys, but let me tell you, I was for you. I even told him, what did I tell him? These people will accept me because they know very well that I'm one of them. That I am a person who went about killing the Christians, and they will definitely accept me. I even stood when Stephen was martyred. You look at this. He is saying, and when the blood of your martyr was shed, I stood there giving my approval. And I know that my people will definitely accept me because I've killed so many people. My people will love me. Do you see the irony? Right. And now they get the point. Earlier they didn't get the point. Now they get the point. The crowd listened to Paul until he said this. And then they raised their voices and shouted, rid the earth of him, he is not fit to live. Okay. The first time it did not really reach them. The second time it reached them. The point is, even when, what is that? The playfulness. Okay, do you have to be playful? I don't know. But he is being very playful even when presenting the gospel, using a method by which they will understand their mistake. Okay, this is beautiful. You can do it various manner, but Paul does it in this manner with an ironical tone, with a playfulness, with wit, whereby he makes them understand, you people are killers. You are murderers. You killed Jesus. You killed his disciples. You killed the prophets of the Old Testament. Yet you call yourselves godly. And how dare you? Anyone who claims to follow God and is out to hurt someone, let me tell you, they have no understanding of God. In fact, they are against God. No matter what their understanding of God may be, no matter what religion they come from, anyone who says, God had sanctioned me to kill you, God had sanctioned me to hurt you, and that is why you can never raise your hand against anyone, no matter what they have done against you. But as a Christian, you can't, because you know God, right? You cannot do that. As a Christian, no matter what people do against you, you cannot lift your hands and hurt them, because that is not the way you handle things. Because that is what these people were doing. They were saying, we are all doing it for God. We know that we live in a scenario today where this is happening. In the name of religion, you will be lynched. In the name of religion, your home will be vandalized. Your place of worship will be vandalized. In the name of religion, all this will happen. But you have no right. You cannot lift your hands and be a person. Zeal is completely different from fanaticism. These Jewish people thought that their zeal, the fanaticism that they had, killing for the religion, killing for God. Even Christians, did that. You know that? The Western Christians did that. I don't know, Indian Christians might have done as well. Europe did that. You know that, right? What about the Crusades? Have you heard about the Crusades? For 300, 400 years, they went about massacring, millions or at least lakhs of Muslims for what? To recapture the Holy Land. They still call themselves Christians. Do you know that in the United States, the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK? You don't know about Ku Klux Klan, right? They would wear white hoods, okay? And they would come to any African American's house, put a stake, a cross which is burned right in front of them, and if they don't run away from that place, they will lynch them, they will kill them. It's called Ku Klux Klan, KKK. Who are they? They were Christians. It's not happening in other religions alone. It could happen in, because we need to have an understanding. God, if you really understand God, you will not hurt a person. You will not hurt anyone. You will be willing to shed your blood, but you will not be out there to draw blood. Be very careful. Or rather, this is what Paul is telling the people, the Jewish people. You are out for blood, and yet you call yourself godly. You are out for blood, trying to lynch people and kill people. How dare you call yourself religious? And he says, I was as religious as you, or even more religious than you, but let me tell you, I have changed, and this is the gospel that he is presenting. But he is presenting it in a way that it will make them think. And then he also, I was talking about what was that? The principle that Paul lived by. I talked about the passion that Paul had, even for the people against him. And he's presenting the gospel. He's using a method by which it'll make them think, it'll make them understand. This is something that needs to be done. You can't just go about patting people on their backs all the time. Diplomacy is one thing. He was a diplomat. He always used diplomacy, but you can't just go about patting people on the back all the time. Certain times you have to make people realize that what they are doing is wrong. And that is why he is using this playfulness, but you could use anything. But he also uses prudence, let me tell you. When chapter 22 verses 24, as they were shouting and throwing off their cloaks and flinging dust in the air, the commander ordered that Paul be taken to the barracks. He directed that he be flogged and interrogated in order to find out why the people were shouting at him like this. So Paul is, or rather the commander is trying to find out why people are against him, and he is resorting to what? Yeah, torture methods, interrogating methods. He would have very well asked him. He's about to flog Paul. And Paul, he's saying, just wait a minute. I am a Roman. Do you have authority to put your hands on me? And this man, as I tell you, he surprises you every time. You would be thinking that he would be doing one thing, and that is the thing that he will not be doing. Okay, he is surprising you all the while. You get the idea? People are trying to kill you, and you would be saying he's going to bring down fire from heaven. No. He would be saying, brothers and fathers, right? You would be thinking that this crowd is so angry, he's going to be very mellow, he's going to be very diplomatic. No, he's going to be ironical. When, we have talked about all of these things. When he is about to flog him, he says, I am a Roman citizen. I know my rights. I am a Roman citizen. This is also important. Be prudent. Okay, don't be suicidal. Just because you have a passion, don't be suicidal. Don't go and, get persecuted. Because that is also that's a persecution attraction syndrome, something like that some people do have. That we want to be persecuted to show the world that, what? That I am standing for God. Okay, persecution attraction syndrome. Okay, I call it. You want to get, because someone slaps you, you are very happy. You know what? I got slapped for Jesus Christ, right? If it happens while you present Jesus Christ, fine, you accept it. But don't be a fool and, welcome that. Don't earn it. Don't deserve it. Here he is saying, I have my rights. Stand by his rights. Okay, today, even as these are practical things that we need to be knowing. We need to know what our constitution is saying. We need to know the rights that we do have. Yeah, maybe those rights are only on paper, and maybe those rights you will never be able to, really enjoy. Is that true or not? Sometimes yes, right? It might be on paper, as I told you. Right? You have freedom of speech, you have freedom of practicing your religion, you have freedom of propagating your religion, and all of those are there on paper. But you need to still know your rights. And when you stand for your rights, sometimes you get hurt even more. You know that, right? They say, you know your rights? Let me, tell you how your rights are important to me. So this is how they do it. But still, you know your rights, okay? Don't be a fool. So if we live in India, we have our rights, stand for your rights. It's not unspiritual, let me tell you. If someone is infringing on your right, it is okay that you know your rights, stand for your rights. So Paul is doing that. Okay, amazing. And this is again very amusing passage. And as Paul is saying this, when the centurion heard this, he went to the commander and reported it. What are you going to do? This man is a Roman citizen. The Roman commander went to Paul and asked, tell me, are you a Roman citizen? Yes, I am, he answered. Then the commander said, I had to pay a lot of money for my citizenship, but I was born a citizen, Paul replied. Okay, do you get this? Paul, now it's a role reversal, almost. This guy was wanting to flog him. Now he said, I'm a Roman citizen. Now, because what has happened is, to become a Roman citizen, either you are born a Roman citizen or you buy citizenship by, you have to pay a lot of money. And this commander supposedly had become a citizen by paying a lot of money. But Paul had the privilege of being a Roman citizen, and he is not afraid to flaunt it. Okay. In fact, there is a role reversal. The commander himself was alarmed when he realized that he had put Paul, a Roman citizen, in chains. Okay. So what are we talking about? A principled man, a passionate man, a man, even when presenting the gospel, wanting people to make them think. So he is using the idea of playfulness. He is prudent in the way that he approaches, right? He knows his rights. He is using his wisdom, right? And not only that, later on also, when he is being taken to the Sanhedrin now, and look at verse chapter 23, Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, "My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day." So Sanhedrin is the Jewish court, basically, right? So now the commander is saying, "I cannot do anything against you because you're a Roman citizen and you have not done anything against Rome. All that you have done is against the Jewish people. So go and stand before the Jewish court, which is the Sanhedrin." And he goes and stands there and he says, "My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day." He is not afraid of saying that he is right. He is not afraid to tell people what he had done is right. At this, the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Look at this. Do you believe this is a quote? Okay. At this, the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, "God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck." He is not afraid to stand for his rights. In a court of law, how dare you strike me even before giving me a trial, even before trying me and finding out whether I'm in the wrong, just because I'm saying I'm right? How dare you lift your hand to strike me? You get that? Try doing that, and you'll get getting a couple of more slaps, right? He knows his rights. That's what I'm saying. When Paul had said that, those who were standing near Paul said, "How dare you insult God's high priest?" So there will always be, what are they called? Yeah? The English language has got a beautiful word which is called bootlicker. You know what a bootlicker is? Right? Bootlicker. Right? There will always be people for high and mighty. How dare you speak against what's that to you? I'm speaking to the high priest. Who are you? Right? Yeah. These people will always be there, right? So, now look at Paul's reply. Amazing. Paul replied, "Brothers, I did not realize that he was the high priest." He is the high priest. He is in the Sanhedrin. Didn't you not know this? He is saying he did not act like a high priest, so I never recognized him as the high priest. Do you get that? Do you get that? This man is playing with them. Such wit. I'm amazed. Okay. He knows his rights. He's standing and saying, "I never knew you were the high priest, because I know if you are a high priest, I need to obey your authority. But to me, you did not look like a high priest because you asked me to be struck on the mouth even before giving me a trial." Verse number 11, the following night, the Lord stood near Paul. And after all this, right, the principle is there, the passion is there, the playful way in which he presents the gospel is there. Then you have the man who's got the prudence to stand for himself when the law warrants that is there. And then, when all of these things are there, whenever God appears, you will always have the smile on your face where it says, "God is going to deliver me," right? Now God says, "Take courage, Paul. As you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so also you must testify also in Rome." What happened in Jerusalem? He was arrested. People hit him. He was taken to the commander. He is taken to the Sanhedrin. God is saying, "You testified well in Jerusalem. But let me tell you, I want you to testify the same way in Rome as well." God's got a sense of humor here. What would you, we don't like these kinds of messages. No, this is not a prophecy. This is not a vision. If it is a vision, it will always be, commander will be, he will come and bow down before you. How dare he lifted the high priest, he said, strike him on his mouth. He is going to come before you and apologize. That's the vision we like. Yes or no? Right? Here the vision is, God in his divine humor, he was saying, "You are playful? Let me show you how playful I am." You testified well in Jerusalem, and you are going to testify well in Rome as well. And we know what happened. He goes to Rome, loses his head, literally, right? He is beheaded. But before that, he has preached the gospel in Rome, and people in the, Caesar's household have received the gospel. This is beautiful. He understands the purpose of God, right? And it's amazing. It's a humorous kind of a thing. when we look at it, just without the incident of him being persecuted and killed, but look at, this is how he understood God. This is how God is. But why is God wanting Paul to be killed? Was God want Paul to be killed? It's not about Paul being killed, as I told last time. It's about even Rome being saved. He wants everybody to be saved. And certain people, Jesus had to die so that we all could be saved. And sometimes, as Christians, we always want God speaking to me, all your enemies will be subdued, you will walk over them. That is not reality, let me tell you, because that is not the heart of God. He wants everybody to be saved. And if you really understand God, then you would be like him, where I say, it's okay, Lord. This is the pacification almost that God gives him. It's not about no plans against you will prosper. It's not like no weapon formed against you will prosper. No, it's him saying, you go, I'm still with you, but you still, because see, it's voluntarily that he is doing. It's not forced upon him. He is such a mature person that he wants to present the gospel, that even in Rome, without Paul, maybe someone else might have done later on, but if without Paul, at this point of time, at the end of the book of Acts, you would find that he has presented the gospel, he has taken it right there into where? The command center, which is Rome, Caesar's palace. He has taken the gospel from where? He started off in Antioch. He's traveled to Rome, and he is presented. He is the one who is, started that kind of a chain reaction in Rome. He had to lose his life for that, but he doesn't care about that. God's plan, purpose. Understand it the right way. It's not about you being killed. It's not, it's not about you have to go through persecution. But understand that if at all, even if you have to do that, because God's plan, purpose is that everyone needs to be saved. And the last part of it, there is this pacification by God, and then there is this plot to kill Paul. Verse number 12 of 23rd chapter, the next morning some Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. Some 40 people, more than 40 men were involved in this plot. They went to the chief priests and elders and they said, we have taken a solemn oath. Look at that, solemn oath. You know what a solemn oath is? Very auspicious, sacred oath. What's the sacred oath? We will not eat or drink till we kill Paul. And they have the approval of whom? The chief priests, the elders. We've taken a solemn oath, they say. Amazing. Okay? And these are all religious people, let me tell you. These are all, I'm not anti-Semitic, by the way, if you're thinking, he's always talking against the Jews. No, it's about religion. It's about religion. That you are blinded by religion, that you lose track of why you even follow God. That people, if you're not for people, then you are following some kind of created God. You're not following God of the heavens and the earth. You are following a God that you have created to satisfy your bloodthirst. You have invented a God. Here you find they are against him. And he goes off in style almost. People say, right? He went in style. He went off in style, right? That's applicable to Paul here. So what happens is, it's almost like a spy thriller now as they are plotting this. But when verse number 16, but when the son of Paul's sister heard this plot, he went into the barracks and told Paul. So there is a spy amidst the Roman army as well. So he goes and tells Paul, they are all plotting. So this man sends him to the centurion. Paul called one of the centurions and he said, take this young man to the commander. The centurion said, Paul, the prisoner, sent for me and asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you. So this man goes to the commander. The commander took the young man by the hand, drew him aside and asked, what is it that you want to tell me? And he is going on telling them the plot that has been hatched by these people who are waiting in ambush for him. And the commander dismissed the young man and he says, don't tell anyone. And now, then he called two of his centurions and ordered them, get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, 200 spearsmen to go to Caesarea at 9 tonight. Provide horses for Paul so that he may be taken safely to Governor Felix. He is going out in style. How many people he's got? Really? He's got 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, 200 spearmen, all escorting Paul out. Right? Yeah. The outcome, obviously, we know later on. But the point is, sometimes we worry too much about, our life. This man was not worrying. He was worried about other people's life. This, upliftment or even, going out in style might happen, might not happen. That is not the point, but it did happen in Paul's life, and it's very interesting for us to know. So just a couple of things today that we've looked at, okay? Paul living by the principles, abiding by the law of the land. Paul having a passion for the people who are trying to kill him, the passion for them to be saved. Paul using his method, and playfulness is one method that he is employing in this narrative to make them understand what they have done wrong. And he also exercises his prudence, where he doesn't want to unnecessarily be persecuted. He knows his rights. He stands for his rights. We talked about, the pacification of God, where God says, you be pacified by knowing that you are fulfilling my plan, my purpose, even by making a sacrifice of yourself. And then we talked about the plot. But what are the things that we need to learn? Maybe in today's world, in today's scenario that you live in, follow the law of the land, no matter whether it is, for you or against you. People who are against us have the heart of God, whereby we want them to be saved and not be killed because they are against us. And also that we will present the gospel in a manner that we will make them understand what they have done wrong. And we will also know our rights, stand for the rights, stand for our rights. We don't want to be killed. We want to be along with everybody, being safe and sound. But if it comes to that, as God tells him, but through you, that Rome is going to be saved. And if it comes to that, willing to lay down your life for God and for the sake of people. May God help us. Let's bow down our heads and look to the Lord in prayer.